But an Amazon good part is, I think, they give you a lot of responsibilities, right? Which is not even defined in your job description, and that is both, like blessing or sometimes becomes like peanut, but depending on what they are looking for. So that was the USP, right? Because if we had just gone and built about one thing strongly, right, then it would have been harder for us to pull in more eyeballs. And by having this platform approach, we have been able to differentiate ourselves compared to other, because the payment is a serious game, right? Unless your product is very matured, bigger businesses won't take you seriously. One is you have to accept the fact and move on. Sometimes we fight the fact a lot and complain a lot about it, right? Say it should be in the right way. See, you want environment to be more perfect all the time to do something, right? But that's not, you get all the one. Environment may be miss perfect, or sorry, like, little lesser perfect, and you have to learn to live around it. You don't have to question, everything all the time.
Hello, everyone. In today's episode, we're joined by Akash Sinha, the co-founder and CEO of Cashfree Payments. Since its inception in 2015, Cashfree has grown to one of India's foremost payment and banking solution providers, handling over $80 billion in transactions annually for 6 lakh merchants. Join us as Akash talks about driving the company's expansion across sectors, offering solutions like payouts, recurring payments, and cross-border transactions, helping Cashfree establish a foothold in 9 countries. Welcome, Akash, to the show. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Mazin, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump into it with the rapid fire. The first question is, if you could be a profession in any other field unrelated to your current work, what would it be and why?
I think I would be, I don't know, managing a zoo where,
A
yeah,
zoo?
I am pretty fond of
Nice.
animals. I might be taking care of animals, in day-to-day needs. Again, it is something that is pretty personal to me, and find it very satisfying in doing that.
That's quite a different answer. Definitely not got that before. I have a cat myself. I like animals, but um, in 3 words, how would you describe your leadership style?
I think clear, being very clear, concise,
Concise. Okay.
right? I think, and yeah, I mean,
Clear and
humility.
concise. There you go. You don't even need the third
Yeah,
word.
humility. Humility. I expect people to be humble,
Okay.
and third would be like hardworking. That's what I mean.
A book or podcast that you would recommend to any entrepreneur?
A junior VC podcast.
Thank you. Um, what's your favorite hiring question? What's one question you like to ask?
Like, tell us what are the things we are doing wrong, and how can we overcome that?
Okay, so you ask people what you're doing wrong. So you expect the candidate to have, used your product and have some
Yeah, if
constructive
you are
feedback.
not able to be critical about something, it means you haven't thought deeply about what they're doing, like how they are doing it. And obviously, in a startup, a lot of things are wrong. So there's no point being, like defensive about it. Just that sooner it comes out, like faster you can go back and improve things up.
Great. No, for sure. That makes sense. That's a good one. What's one truth that few people agree with you on?
Couple of them, I think, in life, getting married early is really helpful in this kind of
Okay.
situation. Like a lot of people I see delaying
That's
it
unique.
because they feel, because when you are younger, when you have more energy physically and mentally, that's the right time to go through it. And yeah, second is people who are smarter early in their life also tend to be smarter in the late stage in their career, right? A lot of people emphasize a lot on experience by looking at what they have done, but they don't look at how smart they were when they were, say, 15 years old, 18 years old, and try
That's
to.
definitely, yeah. I
So
that's a
I
different one.
believe
I've
in
not,
that.
but it makes sense.
Yeah, because if you're a learner in early ages of your life, it means you'll still be learning today. But if you're not curious enough, if you're not learner at that time, then you're just going through a habit of knowing something, doing in certain work, but you won't be very open to learn new things or try something new.
No, that's true. That's a good one. Learning is a skill in itself and
Yeah.
keeps you engaged. So tell us about your upbringing, your childhood. Where did you grow up? Um,
So I grew up in a very small town in Jharkhand. There's a district called Giridih. I did my schooling from there till like school, secondary school, and yeah, and then I went to IIT Hyderabad for my undergrad in 2008, and that was my first shift from a pretty small town to a larger city. And that I think is consistent with a lot of my friends in college and all, right? That's how position India happened in the late 2000s. Right. So we have seen, both kind of, communities, both kind of lives, challenges of, both sides of India. And from Hyderabad, I moved to Bangalore like in 2012 and have been staying here for 12 years.
So since 2012 in Bangalore, okay. And so tell us about the journey, Hyderabad to Bangalore. Was that for work? What
Yes,
was the?
Hyderabad, I think I finished my college. I think then I went to Chennai for a few months for my first work right out of campus. Right, then moved to Bangalore for a different work after that. I think fortunately in college itself, I had a chance to, go navigate through a bunch of startup ideas of my own. Right, was able to convince few of my friends to, work with me. So we tried 2 or 3 ideas in college back in 2009, 10, and that was a time we could afford to, be as creative as possible, like as experimental as possible. Right, no baggage of going wrong, failing, and good thing we learned a lot about, you know how basics of business work. Right, obviously, I mean these were not big businesses, and we also did bunch of freelancing that time. So I think time was not proper back then.
So tell us about some of those business ideas that you worked on. Maybe one or two of the more memorable ones, and some.
Yeah, I think the first idea was we took up a project for a animation studio in Hyderabad. They want to set up their internal CRM where we can, get leads from their potential client, qualify it, like prioritize. So they were doing it via Excel or some, like back of the envelope.
So it was
They
a
wanted,
form, and they would come in, and then someone would put it in Excel. Okay.
just wanted some automation, some system. And we are like in second year of college, right? That was pretty early for, but we're bold enough to take it up, right? Obviously, there was some cash involved, so that also was motivating for us. But also the first of learning something new, building something new, we took it up, we built it. Obviously, it was not as polished as some, like seasoned IT services firm would do it, but they're pretty happy, and they also got it done in a much lesser cost than, otherwise they'd have to spend. So that gave us got experience, a lot of learning, right? We also understood how to be more presentable, how do we present our ideas. Because in college, in academic project, you can do something, at a college level, it still can get pretty high scores. But in real life, I think things have to be at certain standard, even to be looked appealing, right? And then from that stage, I think we have been used to being critical about our work. We have been used to being disappointed about when we do something. So that sort of, like molded all of us who are part of, doing such work in the hindsight. And then it also made us pretty bold enough about, doing such things and not worry about failing, not worrying about, getting, like bad feedback or, criticizing our work. It was all,
You built a thick skin very early on, second year of
it,
college.
it got started to build. Obviously, I didn't build thick skin. We used to feel that, but in the hindsight, that was the starting point. And then we moved on. We tried a couple more things. I think we tried to build something like a social network for workplace where employees can talk to each other. They can share their thoughts. Highly inspired from what Facebook was doing for, like public. And we imagine even workplace. Obviously, there are a few more companies doing that. So we did that for 1 year. I think we also have, few guys in
This was
US.
still while you were in college. This
Yeah, it
was.
was in 2010. 2010. We built it. We're trying to sell to a few enterprise customers. Few were even tried it out at beta, but I think it required a lot more effort, full time, engineer than I think someone has took that up and
Usable. Okay.
full time.
So you decided to abandon it, or what happened?
Not abandoned. We thought we can pick it up once we're out of college, but at the same time, I think life, right? New things keep coming up, and when that happened, we all sat for the campus job. We got placed in good companies. I got placed in this company called Bank Bazaar. I think that time they were doing like lead gen for banks for credit card loans and stuff. So I went there, worked there a few good months in Chennai office. So that was first time I went further south in India, so different cultural experience. And then I think moved back to Bangalore to join Amazon. So I had a pretty small professional career before I started up. I had give or less 3 years of working up after college, like more than 2.5 years at Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, so can you tell us a bit more about those 3 years in Bangalore and your time at Amazon? What were some of your learnings, and how did you decide to walk away from a promising corporate career to start up? Of course, it was, you learned early and you had those kind of seeds sown, but still a big decision.
Stint in Amazon was full of learning. I think before that, whatever we built was at pretty small scale. And Amazon, I think we had a chance to build for say millions of customers, which are coming to your pages every day, right? And and then we could build things, we can measure it, we can look at the data. So that gave us a bigger sense of how larger systems, like should be built, like bunch of microservices, well-defined protocol, well-defined SOP. So at that level, you need discipline in the system, to be able to build something very large, right, and able to build something which can cater to millions of orders per day. So that was, big eye opener for us. And again, we have been looking forward to such kind of opportunities, right? So that was a great experience in itself. Obviously, in a company like Amazon, which is pretty large and diverse, you end up working in a very small part. But even by working at a small part, you can make sense of how the larger system is working.
See, yeah, the scale of the whole thing. And 3 years is a good amount of time to actually get deep enough into it.
Yes, how teams interact with each other, how do they plan, how do ideas get executed, right? And yeah, and they were able to do it at a pretty fast pace, like relative to what people assume outside that larger companies are slow. Larger companies also tend to do things at pretty faster pace. It's just that they do too many things, right? They also do a lot of experiments, right, which sometimes don't work out. But it's not like people do things slowly there, right? But an Amazon good part is I think they give you a lot of responsibilities, right? Which is not even defined in your job description, and that is both like blessing or sometimes becomes like peanut, but depending on what they are looking for, right? So given that I was looking for more well-rounded kind of experience, so we also used to do a lot of business analytics for the product we're involved in, and we had a weekly cadence where we go and measure up how did we do last week, how many customers came in, how many purchases they made, how many drop-offs happened. So we had to go through the entire funnel, and that made us much closer to how businesses work, right? Because if you work just as an engineer, right, you don't know how businesses work,
Yeah,
right?
you just get requirements and you go and build something, but you're actually doing the analytics and coming up with hypotheses yourself, which is unique, I think, for
Yeah, you don't know
especially an
the
entry level engineer.
fundamentals, how change in pricing affect their conversion, how change in pricing impact their decision making. To analyze a lot of data and also a lot of auxiliary data around it, right? And given that e-commerce was picking up in India back then in 2013-14 in a very big way, the same time hyper local came, so gave us a pretty good sense of how internet businesses really work, right? So that was the starting point of learning how internet businesses work. And back in, I think we did that. I think I was completely dedicated to the work in 2012, 13, 14. Also did a lot of enjoyment in Bangalore, settled like Bangalore that time, right? So again, college was a bit intense for us, bit intense for me. So thought maybe like loosen up for a few years, don't have to worry about
Yeah.
future all the time because
The salary is coming
go
in,
through
I have a nice job. Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
when you go through engineering college, right? I think and in place like IIT Hyderabad, which is pretty intense when it comes to coursework, you don't get a time. Obviously, you don't have a lot of cash back there, right? So in the job, you end up getting some disposable cash.
That's
You
more
live in a big
comfortable
city.
and you can afford
You want
things.
to travel, do adventure. So did that. I think for 2 years, life was pretty chilled out. Obviously, work was there, but it was not like something was a bit stressful. So after doing that for 2.5 years, I think, and also that entrepreneur thing was always inside my mind. Right. So that's very nice. I met my co-founder Riju through a mutual friend. I think back in like early 2015. Right. We used to share a
So
flat.
you were still at Amazon back then, and you
Yes, yes,
guys were
like early
just
2015.
introduced with the intention of starting up, or just it was a random
We
introduction?
just met. I think the guys I used to live and they were like batchmates of Riju back then. So normally, whenever you change cities, you end up staying at your friend's flat. That was I think still a norm. But whenever like like bachelors live in, that's how they live in, right? And that's who got connected, right? And given that I was lucky to be part of community where a bunch of guys were starting up, leaving their jobs, so it was not very new for us to do that eventually. We also saw some kind of pride, some sort of freedom and ability to do things on your own, right? And after doing like engineering work for two and a half Amazon, I was also pretty confident of like having that skill that can help me land most of the jobs which are available in the market, right? So not
So
really
you weren't
worried about
worried
that.
about, okay, what will I do if the startup fails? Like, okay,
Exactly,
I
not
can
that much
develop.
worried. Obviously, I can't get
Yes,
any job I want, but I can
yes, but
get
something,
decent enough
a
job
job.
that
Yes,
can put
fair.
back in the track, right? So had a discussion. I think I think Riju also wanted to do something, right? Then we met up, then we looked at the industry, and obviously we had. When you are entrepreneur, once you keep on seeing ideas around yourself all the time, right? It's very natural. You have to sit across and see what is wrong in the world and what are things someone should do, right? I mean, so that was natural. So we already had a bunch of problems in front of us. It was more about the spark. Someone has to lighten that spark about let's do something about it, right? Then we seriously started to brainstorm few ideas. We thought about super app. We thought something in logistic, right? Diju was working at a furniture e-commerce company, leading marketing there. I was also from e-commerce industry. So e-commerce was pretty, known market for both of us, right? And by doing a bit of this, idea hopping, we landed at a idea where we saw cash on delivery is still a big, pain area for customers in India whenever they choose e-commerce. And e-commerce has been growing, every month, every year. And we are also the users of e-commerce coming back from that background.
So back then, only Flipkart offered cash on delivery, right? Or
No, most of the companies used to do that. I think
it
back
was just
then,
hard
bunch
for the
of
smaller ones.
hyperlocal e-commerce. I think COD was, big north back in 2015. Right? I think
Okay.
COD was introduced, if I'm not wrong, around 2011 or even before that. I think that made e-commerce
So they've been
popular.
around for okay
Yeah.
4 years, and now you guys were like, let's build a
Yeah,
solution.
it was
So what?
increasing. Like then people started to order, food from restaurant. They order food, order groceries. It was increasing. It was beyond e-commerce now. Even hyperlocal
Got it.
was seeping in.
Everybody needed cash on delivery, not just the
Exactly.
client
So you end
e-commerce.
up
Yeah.
paying 3 to 4 times cash to delivery personnel, and the struggle was always with the change. Right? Even we used to
Yes.
face that. We thought,
Yeah.
if given that people are not comfortable prepaying it because of trust issue, but can we not make the COD activity digital in itself? Right, when we are actually seeing the product, can we not make it a digital experience rather than because they got the product, there's no trust issue right now. And cities like Bangalore, people have ways to pay through card or wallet or whatever, like online payment methods they had, right? So that was hypothesis, and we went around, we talked to almost 300 like businesses in Bangalore itself, both offline and online,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
so
with
like
it,
small businesses, or was
they
it
were
like
small,
enterprise?
like like someone who's having like 4 or 5 chain of restaurants, like or
Okay.
few grocery stores
Local
or few online
businesses.
businesses,
Yeah.
right? But not pretty large ones, right? All the small ones, because those are the ones we can find who can give us time to talk to, or who are willing to take a bet on very new company. And there were very few examples of company like us back then, right? No one was talking about digitizing COD the way we were doing it, right? And we are like pretty passionate about it, so we built a nice product. I mean, very vanilla, but I think it was a product which was working. And we used to give demos to them, and we used to tell them what is their advantage. And the idea got very popular with, say, restaurants used to deliver at night, right? Because in daytime, your customers can always go to ATM, get cash, and be prepared. But
Yeah. It's easier, but at night it's harder. Yeah. Yeah.
so they wanted to promote it a lot for the sake of getting bigger and bigger order. So that was starting point. Again, it doesn't have a lot of relation with what we do right now. The same time, it was enough for us to make us learn how to do a business, how to start a business, right? So that created the foundation. So the entire hesitancy of talking to customer, getting their insight, getting feedback. So we did that loop once, right? And eventually we moved slightly up in the chain. We started talking to more internet first businesses, online first businesses. And then, rather than, in addition to COD, they also made us aware about few other payment problems which they were facing. And they gave the feedback, market is not maturing fast enough. Why don't you guys also help me in these areas, which were around, say, I'm running a marketplace, I have to pay to my sellers on time, right? And this is a strong business requirement, right? And plus few also complained about collecting money through different payment methods. So we saw there is a good opportunity here. And incumbents were not largely tech driven, they're not product driven, they become largely sales engineer, right? They built a product, say 2011, 12. I've been trying to like just resell it again. They were innovating, but given that the place we're looking for, we felt they're not innovating fast enough, right? But we're also largely right, they're not innovating fast enough, right? And they're not pretty close to the customer, or they're not taking bets into areas which they believe that in terms strength, right? Because back then we had payment gateway companies, but they're just focusing on how do I make card transaction, net banking transaction. But anything where a business has to pay out to the vendor, or wherever business has to collect, through channels which is not digital, they're not coming and assisting them, right? And there are also second pattern, we saw a lot of internet companies were coming up, and they have a bunch of payment problems on day zero, right? Instead of building,
Or
say,
people who are
product.
starting up like from scratch.
Exactly,
Yeah.
online first businesses. Instead of building product by product, these guys need a platform which have solutions for all of their payment problems, and
Because they don't
something
even know what problems they're going to have, right? They're just
exactly something
starting.
they can integrate on day zero itself, instead of building their business for year one and then figuring out this is how this is the new problem I should have to solve, right? So let's not make the iterative step. They should come to a platform, which eventually got the name of Cashfree. They should come to a platform, see the solutions, all the payment problems you're solving, all the payment problems they were facing, and get solutions for them on a single place. Right, being at Amazon, I got very familiar with AWS, so I tried replicating the similar idea here. Because in AWS also, whenever you are building, your application website, you end up accessing everything at a single place. You get server, you got storage, you got queue, you got communication, everything in a single place. And we try replicating the similar idea for payments because we didn't find any similar platform in India back then. So that was the inception point, and that's how Cashfree in the current avatar got born back then. So we launched the platform with 4 products. Obviously, we had the COD product in a very beta stage. So we continued that for some more time, but again, we absorbed it as part of much bigger product. Right. So we launched our first payment gateway back in 2016, like quarter in 2016. In few months, we launched payouts, and then after that, we launched like bank collection and marketplaces. And today we have more than 20 products on the platform. With the same
Kept
theme
going.
that we followed back then.
But I'm curious about that because I mean that sounds almost counterintuitive, right? It's such a big industry. You could focus on one niche and go really deep. Why did you guys decide to go so wide? You started off with 4 products as well and kept
Yeah,
expanding. Can you walk us
yeah,
through?
that was the value prop, right? We were going and talking to customer, whatever problems you are facing, I can solve everything for you. Rather than saying I can just solve this in the best way possible. Businesses were also looking for quicker go-to-market, right? They didn't have bandwidth to go and talk to multiple vendors, integrate 4 different APIs.
Yeah, and integrate with
They
five
just
different
wanted
people.
to exactly. They didn't want to integrate one API, talk to one vendor, and make sure the product is ready because they're also experimenting about all the business models. So that was the USP, right? Because if we had just gone and built about one thing strongly, right, then it would have been harder for us to pull in more eyeballs. And by having this platform approach, we have been able to differentiate ourselves compared to other because the payment is a serious game, right? Unless your product is very matured, bigger businesses won't take you seriously. The only for you to make them take you seriously is because giving them something different or solving a problem which others are not solving, right? Otherwise, why will someone take you seriously for the same product which others have,
Which
like
other
more
people are
people,
doing anyways. Yeah,
more
no,
people,
that's a really
more
good point. And I'm curious about that. I mean, talking about getting people to take you seriously. I mean, you guys were a startup, and you went out and you did this cash on delivery thing, and then built a payment gateway that's relatively early on. How did you go about getting banks to buy in and get all the approvals in place? What was that process like?
See, banks were very supportive. I think banks started to be very supportive to start up in the fintech back then. So we spoke to ICICI, RBL, Yes Bank. I think these 3 banks were very supportive in the early days. So, right. Obviously, I think we got incubated by PayPal back in 2015. So that also helped us, create some credibility. Right. Normally, if you're part of accelerator or something, right? So that helps get some validation about the idea. Obviously, it
Especially
was
a
not
payment related company incubating you.
exactly.
Yeah, so
So we have been able to get again. It was not super easy, but it was not almost impossible for us to do that. So some work was involved, right? We had to reach out to
sure it was
someone, get
a
us
lot more
connected.
than some work you're making it sound quite easy, but yeah.
Because people
But
at banks are also busy, right? I think, and they are also having lesser staff all the time. And you're not a big customer from day zero. You're not putting say
exactly.
100 KR in the
Yep.
bank account. You'll be putting say 10 lakhs, and which is very small for those guys. So they also have to take a bet on the idea. Right? I think eventually banks started to do that more. I think as a startup industry became more bigger, fintech more bigger, banks started to do that more aggressively. But back then they were
So it
choosy.
was the environment as well that also helped you guys. Banks were more
Exactly.
aware. So it was not as much education and getting
Yeah.
them up to speed.
So they were choosy, but few banks were bit ahead. They wanted to support more startups. And that's why we have been able to build a lot of new products by taking help of Yes Bank, ICICI, and later RPL in the early part of it. Right. So that's where we are, I think. And yeah, and we have been lucky enough, not only in startups in B2B space, right? You tend to work with SMBs first, then you work the chain, right? For our case, it happened slightly opposite. Actually, we worked with SMB for first year of the Cashfree starting up. But as soon as we entered 2017 or end of 2017, we started attracting big enterprises on the platform.
And you went
Right.
directly because you had a very strong USP
Because
as well,
what
I
we
guess.
had, no one else had that time,
Yes,
right? So these
exactly.
enterprises, wanted to use those features, and they couldn't access it anywhere else. So that was the differentiation. We have been working with enterprises back then, and that also made us profitable in the year 2018 itself, right? Because we had a product, we had a smaller team. The team was capable, and we have been able to, handle the traffic, handle the load, given that we have been coming from a strong engineering background, obviously it was not very efficient way of doing it, but we managed it. Right? We managed it efficiently. Like we didn't have pressure of cost and all. So, but that was the idea. We managed it, and we were able to create good revenue out of these enterprise customers, and became profitable at a very small scale in financial 2018 for the first time. And from there, yeah, we got more confident. We went after more enterprises, and after that, I think there had been a lot of growth. Demonetization happened, I think, in the year 2007, yeah, 16, I think 16 demonetization happened. So that
So
created a
that
lot of
was
tailwind
another push, right? Yeah, right along the time that
in
you
the
guys did.
market.
So now looking back at almost a decade of your journey, can you
Yeah.
tell us what was some of the kind of, pivotal moments? Like what were some of those moments that really defined your journey over the last decade?
I think I'd say, making few customers live on the platform. I think in end of 2017, early 2018, we landed up into two large enterprise deals. So that really propelled the, like traffic on the platform, right? So that increased the platform volume, by more than 1000% overnight, the way they scaled. So that changed trajectory. I think that made things more and more serious. And just to add, in 2017, we were part of Y Combinator, accelerator. So that also, gave a lot of boost to the company. Right? I think we got a bit more cash. That was the first seed round for the company. I think we raised like around 100K as part of YC program with two more investors back then. So we
So it was
got
the
money.
first time that you guys raised money was from
Correct.
YC
Yeah,
in
yeah.
your environment.
After
Okay.
1.5 years of setting the company, right? So we have been able
Talking
to.
about inflection points, what was your time at YC like? Did that have a huge impact on the company, or was it, you know, just another kind of dot along
Vice made us a bit more confident than what we were and gave more clarity of thought, right?
hints and
Because
just
if you're just building,
defining your problem?
yeah, if you're just building startup on your own, you don't realize the potential of startup. But if you're part of 100 startups and you see few startups becoming a big successful in a more closer way, then you end up becoming more confident, and then you feel you have the fight to fight a bigger player in your industry. So those were the couple of takeaways. One, more clarity in the thought process, more clarity on choice of problem, what to do, what not to do, right? Because few things are clear, but still you try to procrastinate on it a lot, right? So those decision making ability became a bit better, right? Obviously, network got built. We got like bit more popularity. A lot of international investors started reaching out to us. So a lot of good things happened after YC. So it was definitely the first inflection point, right? And after that, we have been able to land, slightly bigger banks, get more support from the banks after raising, first seed round, and landed up in a few big customers after that.
To talk about, more recently, I believe you guys have acquired a UPI Switch certification.
Yeah,
Can you talk to us a bit about that? What are some of the opportunities specifically in the UPI space that you're excited by, and where do
yeah,
you
yeah.
see it evolving?
See, UPI Switch idea came to us back in 2020 itself, right? I mean, during the COVID time, we always believed, we are depending on too many players in between us and the, like scheme institution to process transaction. And I had a strong belief if market is going to scale more and more, right? If the traffic goes 10x of what we have, then it's not wise to depend on third-party vendors to process transaction because you don't know how they are, like building their stuff, what kind of architecture they're following, and are they even ready with to handle traffic which is happening in the market. So we are very closer to business community, and we know the change in behavior. We know the kind of demand that will come. These guys are sitting in, yeah, these guys are serving banks. These are guys are not someone who's getting first-hand feedback from the market. And they're not fully aware of the consumer behavior, the risk, and everything. So back then we thought, how do we be more closer? Let's depend. It took us a bit more time. I think we had to go through our own growth challenges and all. But the seed got planted of this idea back in 2020. We wanted to get into banking tech to make sure the entire stack is more independent, right? It's more and more under control of cash free rather than being dependent on a third party vendor to process transaction. So UPS, which I think we built it in a record time. I think we got it certified like 2 months back, around June or July. It has been running on beta, and we just did the announcement a month back. Right? But the plan is to do for all the payment methods that Cashfree support. Right? We have done for UPI. We did for RuPay already. Now we want to do for Visa, Mastercard, and few other card schemes. Right? And make sure all the payment methods are controlled well by Cashfree, and we're not depending on third party for anything around technology.
No, that's interesting. I mean, so that was something that you thought about, almost 4 years ago, and now it's come to fruition and as yours building. What are some of the new things that you're thinking about that we'll see maybe in the next 4 or 5 years?
I think, see, I mean, we got three licenses so far. I think we got payment aggregation license December. We got cross-border license, I think, this July, right? And there's also one license which is happening right now. See, cross-border is a big space. I think we're building a lot of good stuff around cross-border. But we see Indian market becoming a pretty large consumer. At the same time, we see a lot of businesses that are trying to sell to global consumer. So both the flows are going to go up, right? Indian buyers also have a bit more disposable income. They want to shop from, they want more variety, right? I think they're shopping at international website, be it in Southeast Asia, Europe, US. But historically, they had to depend a lot on their own Visa and Mastercard, which is accepted globally, right? So with our kind of integration we are doing, so all these international websites would be able to offer UPI, RuPay, and all the Indian local payment method to Indian consumers. So the shopping experience for them become more seamless, right? Especially after this mandate around tokenization and around recurring payments. So things will become much more easier for these providers because we can manage all the transactions locally in India, and we can settle the money to those customers wherever they are based out of, right? And we are very soon we are piloting with few guys. I think we'll come back to an announcement very soon, as in the matter of 7 to 8 weeks, getting ready for that. And also doing the vice versa, because we also see there are a lot of export ambition is growing up in the industry, right? I think people are coming with products which they can compete with globally at, but they don't have the right support around how do they collect money, right? How do they get the right certification to get GST credit and all. So there's a bit of workflow which is involved around globally selling for businesses, even some businesses who are say listed at Amazon.com US or say eBay or Etsy. They also don't have easy way of getting money from those marketplaces and making sure they are compliant with the local authorities when it comes to tax payment and everything.
There's quite a
So
lot
those are
that
the
goes into it.
yeah, so
Yeah,
those are few use cases we have taken up, right?
interesting.
And third bigger use case that we have that I still see missing is I don't see a lot of global marketplaces being built out of India. Right? You have
Okay,
great examples of Flipkart, Amazon, Swiggy, but everyone is pretty local. Right? Likes of
right.
Agoda, likes of
Yeah,
Booking.com, likes of Airbnb, those things are non-existent. Right? And
yes.
payment is becoming a big hurdle for that. Right? Even so,
I can
and there
see
are a lot
why.
of
Yeah,
businesses
you have
that
to
are
do it in
trying
each
to
country and comply with local
exactly.
regulation.
So
Okay,
if you are building a great learning platform, right, where you can onboard teachers from anywhere in the world, and consumers are also from anywhere in the world, right? So
yeah.
those
So why
examples are
limit it to
very
just India?
small. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't come across such examples in a bigger way from country like India. So that's the next target. How do we build like right support, right platform, which can encourage people to set up global marketplaces right from India? It should be easy for them to collect money globally. It should be easy for them to disperse money globally, right? And we are getting ready for that stack, almost ready for that stack. But that's the next big change we want to see in them, because our job is also to enable more business ideas, more business models with the work we are doing, and that will eventually help us to increase the size of the pie. We just don't want to go after the same pie which has been created and fight for it, right? We
Help
also
people grow the pie, and then you get a bigger share of it. That's amazing. That's quite a
do,
good
and we
insight.
have been doing that. We did payouts product back in 2017. We are the first ones to do it, and that created entirely new market. And very soon, all other payment peers adopted that product, and it increased the market big further and further. So we want to do same thing with cross border, right? We want more people to be encouraged to set up global marketplaces here. And it's not think about it, it's not hard to set up a company like Airbnb from India if you have the idea, right? It's not that you have to be
Same
in
tech,
Bali
yes,
and do it,
same.
right? So obviously we will not have example of same kind of company, but there would be new kinds of company which can be set up globally, right from India.
But
And
I mean, I'm curious about this concept because I've thought about it quite a lot. I think one of the benefits for an Airbnb type of company is that when it comes to payments, it's mostly cards, right? You don't
yeah,
have, but when it comes to Southeast Asia, that's not the case. Each country has five different payment methods,
correct,
and you know,
correct.
it's all different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think that's an obstacle? And is
No, we are solving it. So India had a slightly different policy in cross-border. There's a guideline called OPGSP. So we had a bit of restriction around it. But last year, I think RBI has come back with the new guidelines around cross-border. So which made, which enhanced the limits, which also added more MCCs we can do, more use cases we can do. Right? It's very much, aligned with the way e-commerce is happening, like sell of goods and services over internet. And that is a
okay?
market we are
Yeah.
completely ready to, like support and align with.
So as it evolves and matures, then you'll be ready to support people.
In both ways, right? We can also give access to, say, local payment method in Netherlands or Germany to businesses who are doing business from India, and we can give them the collection in India itself. The idea is to, create the entire platform. Because globally also there are a lot of popular payment methods. In Brazil you have PIX, right? And in Europe you have like SEPA and a bunch of other things, right? But they're not
Yeah.
accessible to this, like, companies which are based out of India.
Makes a lot of sense. And we want to also talk about some of the tech challenges that you've faced. I mean, you guys are known for having incredible uptime rates and your API is reliable at scale, as you guys have grown. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced? How have you overcome them?
I think it happened over series of innovation, right? These things don't happen overnight. Obviously, we had a version one, then we got a few more engineers, we did version two, then we got a larger team, we built a version three, and that has been the idea. So we ended up standardizing a lot of things eventually, right? We are initially setting the entire environment ourselves. That's when we moved to Kubernetes to make sure development is easier, deployment is easier, there are less surprises, right? Plus, we went after each area and fine-tuned it. We fine-tuned databases, we fine-tuned our entire streaming systems internally. We standardized the protocol, like we adopted microservices in a more matured way. The idea is not to create thousands of microservices, which makes it complicated to manage. We thought we need it, but we also have to restrict it the number we need so that people have to think harder to qualify what could be microservices, what could not be, right? So give a lot of freedom in the hand of developers. They should be free to deploy their stuff on their own so that innovation can happen. Because once you have 300 engineers, right, you can't make any bottleneck for other innovation. Like
Yeah. And
making,
it's also, in the payment space, you can't get things wrong. You can't just have a bug and then like, okay, I'll roll it back. Like, I mean, that's the thing.
yeah. So yeah, that was starting point. How do we make sure engineers are able to work parallelly, right? How should they able to do? Then obviously at deployment, we added a lot of testing during deployment itself. We do security testing during deployment, right? So we don't, whenever we deploy, we don't make everything available for public. We deploy in internal instances. We do all the testing, right? If the testing comes clean, then only we make it available to the public. And that's the, and that has evolved over time, right? I think, and that's something which has been around for the last 2.5 years. But that's something we do to make sure, bugs are not going out in the, production, right? So we have like internal production and external production concept.
I'm just curious, I mean, do you have a team of QA engineers or is it engineers who are also doing the testing and releasing? What
Yeah,
does
yeah.
that
So
process look
we
like?
do both. I think our 70 to 80% testing is automated, right? Only
Okay.
20% testing is manual. So we did a lot of work on automation. Plus, we have a pretty large team on security testing, infrastructure, right? We believe in such as service,
It's
right? So
putting all these pieces together and making sure that they
exactly,
stack
making
up.
the
That's
things are more automated, well tested, and we also took help of a lot of like proprietary tools, like which are present in the world. Like how do we log things faster? How do we route traffic faster? Because you can't build everything in house. Our job is to create good payment system, not like invest into core infrastructure. So we are hosted on cloud, but we also
And
took
so is
help.
that the philosophy? You just focus on payments and obviously there you want to go deep. But when it comes to other stuff, outsource whatever you can and plug in
See, that's also
others.
logical for anyone who is into the business which is not core to them, right? I think we want to build great payment experience, and it's not worth that we go and set up a
Absolutely.
data center, right? Also, there is some cost involved,
Yes.
but you can always bake in that cost in the margins you are making. Right? It's a trade-off.
Makes sense.
Right? So yes.
Absolutely. Talking about trade-offs, you guys have launched in a few countries. International expansion is
Yeah.
always challenging, especially in such a regulated space. I think USA and UAE, you guys are live in. Could you walk us through the thought process? How do you pick which markets to launch in? How do you actually go about launching?
I think the stage one, we got ready to onboard customers from these markets on the products which have been doing in India, right? So we wanted to onboard international merchants on products like payment gateway, payouts, and after this cross-border license coming in, right? So we have been doing cross-border since 2019 or 20, but under different guidelines, and that was the first time we started to onboard global customers. But now I think that momentum will pick up a lot, and I think we should be ready to onboard more and more merchants who are looking to buy from India or say sell to India. So in both kind of scenarios. Plus, I think 3 years back we also acquired a stake in company based out of UAE, right? I think it has been 3 years from then, right? So that company has a payment acceptance license in that country, and now we are going to do a lot of integration with that company in the next few months. So the idea is to take Cashfree brand out of India, that company is operating under a different brand. So we are going to have more local presence in newer markets in addition to India, and we want to serve local merchants with a local requirement. And that is one of the expansion plan we have been envisioning, right? Obviously, we are going to be more deeper in Indian ecosystem, be bigger in India. The same time, we believe Indian fintech ecosystem has built a lot of great products, which are still missing in a lot of emerging and developing
For
economies.
sure. Yeah, I think so. India
Right?
is quite far ahead from the rest of the world when it comes to
And
the
given that the
ecosystem.
kind of behavior which has, and we have seen the change in behavior in Indian ecosystem, right? How consumers behave, at what stage trust get established, what kind of products are needed right now, what would be needed after 5 years. So we have some sense of it. I mean, we could be wrong, but at least the probability is lesser. So we are trying to go and have more local setup, like acquire license locally, set up a local team, do things operationally. But of course, we are going to use the common tech platform that we built in India for all the countries right to go into. So Middle East is a big focus area right now. We already are present in 4 markets there, and in next 2 years we want to capture 3 to 4 more, depending on the opportunities in those market. So that is one area we want to go more strongly at. Be one of the leaders. I think we don't believe in just being one of the players in these markets. Be one of the leaders, and have a commanding market share in these market. And we have strong confidence that we should be able to achieve that. Right. But to answer your question, if I have to go to new market, do something from scratch, I think that is a pretty hard work, right? Because we have evaluated a lot of markets, and we understand the challenges to do anything from scratch, especially in a regulated space. Right? It's not
Exactly.
easy.
So,
You cannot build
no,
knowledge.
but that's good advice for people who are listening. Like, build on what you already know, kind of give people opportunities to
Yeah, yeah.
access Indian payment methods abroad and then branch out from there.
Because you have
That's
to
amazing.
look a lot of these things from financial lens, right? Because everything is a cost. Right? Your time is also a cost, right? If you
Yes.
can buy that knowledge at certain cost, it's worth it, right? You don't have to get the knowledge by doing the hard work all the time. We already had done hard work in like massive country like India, and it was worth it. It was important for us to know how things work in larger economy, but for every small economy we don't have to go and
You
do
don't have to
things
do the whole thing again and
like
relearn
that.
everything.
We
Yeah.
do more smartly, and then go after a goal.
And curious about how, with your company growing and acquisitions and other companies and other cultures coming into the mix, how has your approach to recruiting changed, and how involved are you in recruiting nowadays?
No, very much involved in most of the senior hiring. Right. I think if when you're building company in India, right, it's not difficult to have access to talent who also worked in global markets. Right? That's the best part here. Right. You can get say finance folks who have worked in say 10, 12 countries, or who have even spent time out of India. If you're looking for someone in business development, product, because we have Ram as a CTO, he spent 12 years in US, and they've worked with global teams. Right, that's one of the perks of building a company in India. You have access to talent, access to people who have global exposure already. Right, they have worked with larger conglomerates, larger companies, and they have worked with people of different cultures. Right, so that's one of the perks which we don't realize unless we become bigger. Right, I mean we take a lot of these things for granted, but it's a big plus. Example, right, if you say setting up company in Philippines, you can hardly find such talent who has worked in global market. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, right. It'll be very limited, and yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Even
Yeah,
say in
that's
Korea
that's
or
interesting
Japan,
actually.
say if you're building in
Never
Korea, right,
contribute.
it's not easy to access people who have worked with so many different cultures and different kind of people. So we have been lucky enough, and at the right stage of company, we also look into those past experiences where people have dealt with international markets, international regulation, have done international operations. Right. Obviously, they have to be correct in fundamentals. Right. But beyond a point, I think depending on their role, depending on how nothing, because right now we are going to manage technology in say 5 to 6 markets. So there you have to have a sense of how do you do geographical deployment, how do you manage things on multiple cloud, because you can't have same cloud providers across all the markets, right? So that requires a bit of maturity and know-how of how to do things. So we have people in the cash already who have gone through that work in their past career, in their past life. Right? So it's not completely new for us as a company. And yeah, and that's true with other department, right? If I look at risk department, we have people who have worked with say UK regulator or US regulator in their past career, and now they're working with regulator in India, so they have some broader sense, and things are largely similar. It's just that there is local flavor everywhere, but things are at baseline largely similar, and world is largely globalized, right? It's not extremely local anymore, barring few exceptions in the world, right? I think globalized, and good part is India has been able to influence at least this Middle East part very heavily, right? And with a strong Indian diaspora, and a lot of their institutions look up to India whenever they have to form their policy drafted.
So it makes it easy to
Slightly easier,
make
right?
it the right target market.
Compared
And same
to
for the US, you have a lot of Indians in the US who want to send money back. And okay,
yeah, yeah,
that's quite interesting.
that's fair.
Okay, and so What about your role? I mean, over the last decade, I'm sure your role has changed a lot. Can you walk us through some of the big transitions and what does your role look like today?
I think founder's role, I think, generic thing, evolve because of compulsion, right? As company grow, you'll come across tasks which are not assigned to someone, and which come across tasks which no one is owner of. So you keep taking up those roles, right? That's how you grow in more things. But beyond a point, there are certain things where you also want to be a, like guy who wants to verify things before it passes through. Like initially we also have to look a lot into around PR comms marketing, but now our team has been equipped enough, and slowly you also build that sense with that team. Your wavelength starts matching and they also understand how things have to be done. It becomes cultural to the company. If you ask today, we are heavily involved into obviously in core areas around hiring, like what kind of talent we should get in, how do we retain people, how do make working at Cashfree easier and more fun, right? So those are the bigger areas we have been thinking day in day out. Right. Second thing around governance, right? How do we make sure in governance is going up and up, right? So because company is also a system, right? And it can't be people driven in all the areas. Obviously, if your decision are
In
people driven,
processes, especially as you scale, of
yeah.
course.
Other than that, we want to have more system in place, more checks and balances in place, which makes sure tracking is easy. We should have trail of all the decision making, and communication is also easy inside Cashfree, right? It shouldn't be happening out of Cashfree system platform, right? Governance, there's and more opportunities. We keep looking for more business idea, more business opportunities. As part of the job, talk to more startups, see if there is, we can help them, and also look at other markets and see where are we missing, what are the gaps, right? What are the inefficiencies in the company? So more at bigger level, right? Something which can, keep making 20-30% improvement rather than looking after 1-2% improvement. That will again make us look sight of bigger picture. Obviously, we have great talent who can do that. I don't have to do that again, but there are bigger areas where people may not, because if you see a company growing over 10 years, right, so you have some sort of understanding of what
Yeah,
the
of the
needs
trajectory and where it's going and where
may
it's
not
come
be
from. Yeah.
evident to people who have been around 3-4 years, right, just natural to you if you see something very long time and you can associate what is the next thing company should be doing. So again, not a well-defined role, but it is
No, but I think
whatever it
not
takes.
that, but you described it quite well. So appreciate that. One question for our listeners: a lot of people want to start up in fintech. If you had to do another startup in the fintech space today, what would you do, and like what advice do you have in general for founders who want to start up in this space?
I think fintech, there are two places you can do, right? I mean, either you can be gravitated more towards financial services or more towards technology, right? Right. And technology is a big space where people can play on. If you look at current fintech players or financial services provider, likes of lending industry, wealth tech, right? They're still struggling with more state of the art technology, right? I mean, even likes of HDFC Bank and all, you might have seen the news. They're also upgrading the system to handle more traffic, improve user gratification. Because consumer is becoming, more obsessed about gratification, good experience, right? And that is forcing all these providers to provide it through technology. It's a great opportunity, right, around everything. I don't know, how do you onboard customer, how do you verify them, how do you underwrite your loan, how do we give them certain services, even something is how do you help them redeem their rewards quickly, right? A lot of credit card companies give, if you shop here I'll give you 1,000 reward points, but when it comes to redemption it's still not a best experience. Obviously few banks have done a great job, make it easier, but these are areas where technology can really help them, give great experience to the customer, right? Again, I'm talking more from B2B lens where you can build it.
No, of course, but that's
Financial
fair enough.
services, the market is big for, like, wealth, insurance, lending, right? Indian market is big and big appetite, right? Obviously, you'll end up competing with a lot of providers, but there's a niche you can create. You can find the pockets you're more comfortable with, rather than imagining I can, have pan India empire. If you can just look at small niche, be successful there, and that would be a great start. So
No, that's amazing. Really great advice. And just to kind of, you've already touched on it a little bit, but just to kind of put it all together, what do you see the next 10 years looking like for Cash Free? What's your vision, and where do you want to be 10 years from now?
see, for 10 years, I think Cashfree is super bright. I think because see, we are very much market dependent. The market is growing up, we'll have more demand and we'll have more merchants we can serve to. Right? Good thing Indian market has been growing for last 5 years and we still see it growing for next decade. So we're very confident, and payment is like evergreen sector, right? I think irrespective of which category goes up, which category goes down, we still have businesses, we can serve to. So that way we are, pretty confident of the demand being out there. Now we are making sure we don't make mistakes internally. We don't end up giving bad user experience. We don't end up making any mishaps in governance. We don't take risk lightly. So those are the things where we are setting standards and creating guardrails that we should be ready to handle the demand which is being created in the market. So we see Cashfree becoming bigger and bigger as the economy becomes bigger from here, as digital economy grows in size, because a lot of transformation is also happening. Right? Even the economy might be growing, say 6 to 10%, but digital economy is growing much faster than that because the transformation happening, consumer behavior is changing. So that's a great space to be in. Right. And also we see us going into more markets. Like it has started to happen. And I assume in next 3 to 4 years we'll be in more than 15 markets is what we are going to target. Right. Initial few markets will be slow, but I think once we see go the playbook, we
Figure
can
out
curate
how
it.
to scale it. Yeah. So, and I love your approach of almost going where the demand is, where you see the distraction, both with your products and with the markets that you're operating in. Yeah,
That's true with business. If there's no demand, no matter how great product you build,
you can't push
you'll
it.
always
Yeah,
hit the
exactly.
market. And that's the
um,
point.
and so this is the final question that we ask all our guests. We could go on, but in the interest of time, what is one piece of unfiltered feedback that that you really impacted you personally or professionally?
One is you have to accept the fact and move on. Sometimes we fight the fact a lot and complain a lot about it, right? Say it should be in the right way. See, you want environment to be more perfect all the time to do something, right? But that's not, you get all the one. Environment may be miss perfect or sorry, like little lesser perfect. And you have to learn to live around it. You don't have to question, everything all the time. Right. See,
That's a good one.
one thing we see people complain a lot about taxes. How do I save taxes? What should I do to do? I mean, they invest, significant amount of energy in just to solve a small problem. It's not a problem. If you are able to increase your overall earning, then
It doesn't matter
taxation is
why I
not
save
a
taxes.
yeah, it's not a big
Yes.
problem, for you, right? It's a right, and you can argue it could be lesser or more, but you don't have to, be very obsessed about it all the time, right? You can just
To
accept
solve
it.
the right problems.
Yeah, accept it and move on and focus on more, positive things, more better problem, and move on from there. And this is a common thing I see across the industry, across younger people. They are extremely obsessed about it and not able to, grow overall value of, what they can do or what they can get.
Thank you so much, Akash. That was really good advice, and it was a really good conversation. It was great having you on the show.
No, thank you for having. Really enjoyed the conversation today.